A film crew has gathered outside, their final moments of a long shoot coming to an end. The busy energy of the set slowly starts to fade as the director wraps up the scene. Cut. Okay, let's wrap it up and head back, the director calls, signaling the end of the shoot. The crew cheers quietly, satisfied with the work they've done. One of the director, smiling, turns toward the director. Thank you for allowing us to film at your hospital, director. Hey, since we've captured everything, you might as well use all of it, the director jokes with a grin. Oh, you bet. I'll make sure to keep as much footage as possible. Another team member responds, feeling a bit of excitement over the success of the project. Suddenly, a few nurses, their eyes shining with admiration, spot Heesung across the set. Heesung. Over here. I'm such a huge fan. One nurse shouts. You're so cool, another nurse gushes. You're really handsome, a third nurse adds, visibly excited. Heesung, humble but flattered, smiles. Thank you, he says, acknowledging their compliments with grace. Kim Dan and Yoongu stand quietly nearby, watching the scene unfold. Their quiet conversation holds a more personal undertone. Heesung sure is popular, Kim Dan murmurs to Yoongu, watching the actor interact with the nurses. Yeah, he really is, Yoongu agrees, smiling softly at the sight of the excitement around them. The moment feels peaceful, but it's clear that it's time for them to go. It's time for me to head back now, Doc Dan. It was really good to see you again, Yoongu says, his voice tinged with both warmth and sadness. Kim Dan nods, feeling a weight in his chest. I feel the same. It was good to see you too. As the group begins to break up and say their goodbyes, Kim Dan feels the quiet creeping in. It's just so quiet here without them, Kim Dan mutters, his gaze turning toward the horizon. The bustling energy of the day is starting to leave him, and in its absence, a deep sense of loneliness seeps in. Inside the hospital, the day continues with a starkly different atmosphere. Kim Dan's thoughts are preoccupied with the responsibilities weighing him down. The tension is palpable as Kim Dan's eyes widen, his thoughts racing. Doc Dan, someone shouts, snapping him out of his thoughts. The sharp voice comes from someone who is clearly frustrated, seeing a patient fall. Kim Dan's body stiffens as his mind reels. What the hell are you spacing out for? The person yells at him. Kim Dan stammers, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but the harsh words continue, bringing with them the crushing weight of guilt. If he breaks a bone, are you going to take responsibility? The angry voice demands. Kim Dan's hands tremble, but all he can do is apologize again, unable to stop the spiral of anxiety consuming him. Later, in a private conversation with a doctor, Kim Dan is told that he needs to reflect on his actions. This time, we were lucky the patient landed on a soft mat, the doctor says sternly. If it had been on the floor, you'd be in serious trouble. Kim Dan nods quietly, his face pale as the gravity of the situation sinks in. Do I make myself clear? The doctor asks, the frustration in their voice palpable. As evening falls, Kim Dan finds himself sitting next to his grandmother in the quiet of her hospital room. He watches her sleep, his thoughts drifting as he tries to steady his racing heart. Time is ticking, but my hands are tied. What do I do now? He wonders silently. The image of his grandmother, fragile and calm, contrasts with the chaos of his mind. He can't escape the feeling of helplessness. In the village, at their house, Kim Dan arrives to find their puppy lying motionless on the ground. Kim Dan hurries over to it, panic in his chest. He picks up the tiny creature and races to the vet, hoping for a miracle. But when the puppy is pressed against his chest, his worst fear is confirmed. It's too late. Don't take it too hard. All life comes to an end, his grandfather says, his voice filled with wisdom and sadness. It's just that this little one's time came too soon. Kim Dan's heart aches as he holds the puppy close. The feeling of loss becomes all too familiar. I wanted to cling on, whatever it took, but I'm so tired, he thinks to himself, the weight of life's challenges pressing down on him. Images of his childhood flash before his eyes, the smiling faces of him and his grandmother. Those were simpler days, before the struggles, before the pain. I don't know anymore. I just want to rest, he admits to himself. Kim Dan, caught in the whirlwind of responsibilities, knows he must continue. He works part-time jobs, struggles to make ends meet, and spends what little time he has left with his grandmother, knowing that their time together is limited. I miss Grandma, he thinks, his voice barely a whisper in the wind. I'll head to the hospital. She won't be around for much longer. So I'll spend time with her while I still can. As he heads out, the weight of his responsibilities tugs at him, but the love for his grandmother keeps him going. Kim Dan stands at the edge of the shore, the cold wind whipping through his hair, his gaze fixed on the endless stretch of water before him. The rhythmic crash of the waves against the rocks feels strangely distant, almost like it's happening to someone else. His heart pounds in his chest, and the knot in his stomach tightens. He's not sure what he's doing here, why he's drawn to the water so urgently. Maybe he's hoping the vast emptiness of the ocean can swallow him up, erase the pressure he feels, the loneliness, the overwhelming weight of everything piling on him. The memories of his grandmother, the guilt, the exhaustion from juggling his part-time jobs and his responsibilities, they all blur into one heavy feeling. Kim Dan steps closer to the water, feeling the damp sand under his feet, the chill of the sea air wrapping around him like a shroud. He stumbles, the ground beneath him feeling unsteady, his legs shaking with the strain of carrying too much for too long. It's as though his world is slowly tilting, spinning away from him, and the thought of walking into the waves, letting them take him, seems oddly tempting. Just a moment. A breath. He thinks. Just enough to escape. Without hesitation, Jae-kyung's hand shoots out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. The contact is immediate, and Kim Dan feels a rush of warmth flood through him, pulling him back from the edge. Before he can react, Jae-kyung yanks him into an embrace, his arms encircling him tightly. What the hell do you think you're doing? Jae-kyung's voice is rough, but there's an unmistakable care hidden beneath the frustration. His breath brushes against Kim Dan's neck, and the touch is almost comforting in its intensity.